What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tattoo Talk. Today, we got a very special guest, Gaston Siciliano. What up, what up, what up? So, today, I figured who better to talk to? He's been there from the beginning to where we're at right now. So, we want to talk about the evolution of tattooing, even the tattooing, the machines, the artwork, whatever we can squeeze into this podcast. And guys, if you have any questions, we always tell you, comment below. If you have any suggestions for future shows, comment below. So, Gaston, let us know, man.
What do you want to know, man?
I want to know. So, I'm not an artist. I started working here about 3 years ago. So, I've been getting tattooed for like 20 years. You've been there from the beginning. So, I think there's nobody better that can tell us the story than.
So, I think the evolution of tattooing had gone through long phases where tattooing wasn't unchanged. So, when we're talking about mummies and tribes, that was, it's easy to say that probably thousands of years, people were tattooing for thousands of years in the same similar manners, And then electric tattooing came in, and all those hand tools faded away and people started relying on tattoo machines. So when the first, tattoo machine was invented, you can actually Google that. O'Reilly, which had actually was the person that patented an idea that Thomas Edison had for the electric pen. And he was the first one to actually convert that idea into a electric tattooing device. So from there, the industry also for 100 and change years, kind of like remained unchanged when it came for tattoo equipment. Now, the R itself was actually a translation of what machines were kind of like allowing artists to do. Because if you think about it, this realism didn't exist 25 years ago the way it exists right now.
Yeah, I don't think you could do a realism with that equipment of the caliber that we're getting right now.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that in order to create an outstanding realistic piece, you have to have a pen style machine, because look at Nico Hurtado. He started like rendering the sick work with tattooing, but I think it was just the mindset of the industry itself. I think that the evolution of tattooing itself has a lot to do, especially in the last 25 years, with the evolution of the products as well. Back then there weren't many colors, and people have to mix their colors. So you have primary colors, and now you have brands have 300, 400 colors. You don't even know which color to pick right now.
So you had to know color theory back then.
Back then and right now you have to know color theory if you want to be a great artist. That doesn't change there. The evolution of the products that allow us to create our craft and the industry itself, right now they're going hand to hand, whereas before it was much more of an isolated thing. People have to figure it out how to create their tools, how to create their pigments. You have the back then people, mummies, and that goes thousands of years, BC, the modern tattooing of electric tattooing, we call machines. Then I think we have a new phase, and call it the pen phase or call it the rotary phase. I call it the iPhone phase. I think that when Steve Jobs, decided to really kick our butts with a new iPhone, it kind of like woke up everyone's mind. Every creator, every maker were like, wow, man, things that seem to be impossible are possible.
We've gone through steel machines, coil machines, to now then you went to the 1.5 coil, so then we went to aluminum machines, then we went to rotary machines, pen machine style. Now wireless, guys. You've been part of this revolutionary, effect in the industry. And
my idea was always try to think outside the box. With my designs, I went to school for graphic design. I went to, art school when I was really, really young. So being artistic and thinking outside the box was what I was taught from, a very, very young age. So when I decided to create products for tattooing, I knew that they have to be different, but not to be different, just to be different and be recognized because they're different. I always have problem here in this part of the thumb, even when I remember when studying graphic design, holding the mouse and that posture really, really hurt me. And I knew that I couldn't hold machines for longer than 3 hours with tons of breaks. My first machine were made out of brass. And I remember I had a machine that was 12 ounces. And I tattooed with that machine for the longest. Probably that machine broke my hand.
Oh my God, it's
and I was very skinny when I was young. And I remember that when I decided to do aluminum machines, because remember, my first machine was made out of steel, and my very, very first were handmade. When I decided to start doing aluminum machines, there was a wave of hate. towards the brand. Oh, aluminum machines, they are not good. They vibrate a lot. They're super noisy, super unreliable. And I think that feedback was the feedback that kind of like empowered me to, okay, so that means that nobody can figure it out. I have to figure it out. I just wanted to, overcome those challenges,
I mean, I know that one of the things that I say a lot to the people at conventions when I meet them, and they know it, is that I tell them that you always designed, that you were an artist first. So everything that you designed it for the artist.
Look, there are a lot of companies design for the public. I design to please myself.
Right.
First. And I need to be able to tattoo with a product. The product needs to be able to do what I want the product to do. And I think that, what I'm achieving by this is I'm actually beta testing as I design the product. See what I'm saying? Whereas a lot of other makers of any other thing, call it whatever you call it. You have to rely on a focus group, or people to tell you all that feedback. And whereas we do that because, we always involve the pro team and, all of our friends to test our products. By the time the product is ready or the first prototype is ready, it's kind of like has undergone through some sort of beta testing and enhancement and that auto feedback that I give myself towards the product. So I don't think I ever told this story on camera, but my very first machine, I built it in my house. My dad, I was probably 17 years old. And my dad used to have a room with a bunch of broken stuff and a bunch of tools. There were broken radios, broken stuff. When I was very, very young, at the age of 12, my dad used to buy me these electronic magazines. And these electronic magazines came with kits that I have to draw the PCB with actually indelible markers and then submerge it in acid. And you have to solder stuff. And every magazine was a project. If I remember, one of my first products was an FM radio. Came in one of the projects, so I built it and it worked, and I was able to broadcast about 3 miles radius or 5 miles radius, something like that. And I saw a couple of those in school, I remember. So I spent so much time in this room that my dad had with broken electronics because that's where I was building my projects for the magazine. But then I was watching in my house a TV show about prison rigs. I was 15 when that happened.
So at 15, you're watching a show on prison rigs?
Prison rigs. No, I mean, it's the prison and how, tattoo artists, prisoners were building their machines.
Making their machines, yeah.
So that episode, I don't remember the show. It was kind of like Lock Up, one of those shows. That show really pushed me to explore tattooing. I thought it was fascinating that people were actually creating something permanent on the skin with things that they were building with their hands. 17, I built my kind of like coil-like machine. But when I was 15 years old, I actually built a device with a big pen and a needle because my dad also used to breed German Shepherds.
Like a syringe needle?
So he used to vaccinate the dogs. And at the same time, when he was younger, he was studying architecture. So we have Indian ink, the little square glass of Indian ink.
I remember getting tattooed once with a needle, string, and Indian ink.
Exactly. So I figured that if I use a hollow needle, I can actually hold more ink and be less painful because those needles were super sharp. And I did the first tattoo I did on myself. Then I did it on my cousin. I'm sorry. Yeah. I scratched. I was 15. I tattooed my cousin. I tattooed myself. I tattooed a bunch of kids. And I actually tattooed in the bathroom of my elementary school for a long time. I'm sorry. I'm not going to hide it. I know that a lot of people are going to tell, oh, yes, I had an apprenticeship and, I was trained by
we're
son.
talking a long time ago.
I learned like that. In a really bad way. I'm not proud of that. I don't fight it either because that's my origins.
When you say you saw a program of people doing rigs in prisons, that's not the healthiest place to do a tattoo.
That's not the healthiest. So guys, don't take my advice today, okay?
This is shit that happened a long time ago.
This happens to me, and don't be unfortunate like I was to learn in that way, please. I always wanted to improve that little thing, that sticky. And obviously, I didn't tattoo people with the same needle, because my dad had a bunch, so I would put a new disposable needle, and probably I was dipping in the same ink. Ugh. Anyway.
Now that you think about it.
I think about it. Then, when I was 17 years old, when I was in this room that my dad had with a bunch of tools and a bunch of broken, artifacts, I would actually start thinking, man, I would love to create a tattoo machine. And because at that time, I wanted to get tattooed. 17 years old, I wanted to get tattooed so bad. So I wanted to actually tattoo because in my head I thought I was gonna give a tattoo to myself, in a bigger scale. So I tried to build a machine out of things that I was, looking in magazines and stuff like that, but I couldn't make it work. I remember building the coils and stuff like that, but I didn't know how to wire them or anything like that. And I had an electronic background, and I tried a couple of things, but it just didn't work, And I gave up, and I went to a guy to get my first tattoo. It was a cover-up of the first tattoo I got when I was 15.
The spider.
The spider. So I went to this guy, and this guy unfortunately passed away. He's a really great artist. He actually was a sailor from my city, Rosario, in Argentina. His name was El Caña. So he gave me my first tattoo, and that guy dared to teach me a little bit about tattooing. I remember when I was about to get tattooed, I asked him if I can see one of his machines. So I started seeing the wiring of the coil machines. I held the machine, and I looked at the machine, and I'm like, okay, this is connected here. Okay, the two cables go there. So I figured how to connect the machine. And then I got tattooed. So now I went home, and I had such a candid vision of how that machine was wired that I was able to actually make my machine work. And that was my very first machine, which was crap. It was actually bolted in. I didn't have welders or anything. It was very, very bad. And I cut the spring with a can of soup, the metal. So it wasn't, but at least I got the principle, running. Fast forward until 1997, I was 20 years old. I moved to the United States, and I did a couple of tattoos with that shitty machine. The tattoos were exactly like the machine too. So I came to the United States. I can get a machine so easy here, And I remember getting the first machine that I got was I think it's Spalding Roger. Yeah, Spalding Roger. And I was like, wow, man. Like I was looking at that machine and great. Then I got a National machine as well. And I was just freaking out. I'm like, look how shiny they are. They were.
I'm about to kill it.
Oh my God, the coils were wrapped with this holographic thing. I was like, wow, it's like, that was great. And, when I came here, I didn't speak English. I didn't know anyone. So I started tattooing in my apartment for real, and I tattoo. Back then in Argentina, I did a lot of tattoos, but my resources were very, very limited, Ink, we had a friend that used to actually travel to United States, and he used to bring ink. So we built our first needles, and the way we used to build them is get a hanger, the wire of the hanger, do the hoop, and then we would actually sew in needles, tying them with thread and super glue. That's how we used to build the needles, for real. Not even welding.
That was before rigs, before anything.
Not even welding. I actually started welding my needles here in the United States. And after every tattoo, we would actually get the same little thing, scrape the old needle, remove it, throw it away, burn it, and then we will build new needles. Yeah. I built needles for a while because I loved it. I love to be crafty. I love the smell of flux. I love to be, it was kind of like, to me, building needles like a stress releasing, therapy. It was so awesome, just to stack them together. And I used to build with no jigs, even the mags, all everything with a razor blade, just put them together. And then I just love that. I would actually mess around here and there, build machines, saw them, screw them together. They were more like the prefab type of thing with screws and stuff like that. Fast forward a few years, I'm like, I just want to work at a shop, I started working at some shops on the beach, years after I decided to open my own shop. I'm never going to forget this. So I was working for the shop. I'm not going to mention a name. Probably some of you guys watching know who that person is. But I was actually standing outside the shop with my other tattoo colleague friends, and we were wearing shorts and stuff like that. But the store used to have also a clothing store. We were in South Beach, it was the very high season. So we were leaning on cars, looking towards the shop's door, and the owner comes and say, hey, guys, you guys are intimidating my customers. I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm like, it's the freaking tattoo shop. Yeah, but I also said clothes, and, I don't want people. And I'm like, so what do you, so I got into an argument with a guy. So what do you even open a shop? So we are intimidating your customers. I thought your customer were people wanting to get tattooed.
Intimidators.
Long story short, the guy tells me, look, listen, in my store, my rules, if you don't like it, go and open your own shop. Man, the worst thing you can do is challenging me. So I opened a freaking shop. In South Beach. South Beach was full of shops at that time.
I remember that.
So having a shop next to you is nothing new.
No,
all the time.
There was one next to the other.
One in every block. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck, I'm gonna open my own shop. Why do I have to listen to this guy's crap? He doesn't even have tattoos. And to be honest with you, I didn't have the means to really do it. I just jumped on it. I had some little money saved. I didn't know how expensive it was to lease a place that you have to come up with 3 months of security deposit, the electricity, the internet, the this and that and that. Make a long story short, it took me about 6 months, the place, to build out. I was one day away from opening, and I only have $50 in my account. That's it. I went all in, super stressed out. But finally, we opened the shop, and when we opened the shop, we started making money from day one. And I think that the reason why was that is because our shop was really, really different than other shops. Our shop looked more like an art gallery. Our shop looked more like a place that you want to come with your mom as well, and your dad and your kids, and everyone had a good time, I wanted my tattoo and my, colleagues' tattoos to be invited and to cater to a wider audience. And indeed, that's what I actually accomplished, I never had an old school mentality. And like I said, I appreciate what the old school have brought to this industry, because we wouldn't have an industry if it wasn't because of what happened, before. My ideas were that don't be the same guy, like the guy next to you, I always wanted to be remembered by originality, So I decided to do it, design a shop that was completely different than anything that was out there. And I think, we achieved it. And then I opened a second one because we were so busy. We used to have like mobs of people waiting, and that was too stressful, The look was, again, completely different. It was ultra modern, ultra modern, ultra clean line, where the other one was more Renaissance, So I figured, let's name them differently to have two products, And that worked really, really good. To be honest with you, when I opened my shops, I really learned the inside of the industry. So at that time, my heart and soul was in FK irons, and running a shop was very demanding.
So you were already building machines at that time? Oh, okay.
So yeah. Oh, yeah. So now I want to, because, there are two sides of the stories here. The one is the tattoo shop owner, tattoo artist, and then the guy that was actually building tattoo machines. So back in 2007, at that time, I used to live in Homestead, Florida. So I had my own little agency and everything, and I was tattooing on my house, and then I was actually building websites, and I was, paying my bills. And one day I just, got completely tired of the corporate world and dealing with clients, signing contracts for websites and, graphic design and all that stuff. So I'm like, you know what, man? I'm just going to continue pursuing tattooing full time. I had machines. I wasn't comfortable with the machines, but I'm like, if I'm going to tattoo with my own machines. And this time I'm going to make them exactly how I want it, so I was able to afford somewhat, tools and stuff like that. So I went to Home Depot, and actually I got a bench, I got a grinder, I got a hacksaw, I got a hammer, and I got a welder. And I had no idea how to weld, but, if I wanted to do it, I bet you I was going to become a good welder. I designed a couple of models myself, with stock material from Home Depot, and I'm going to tell you, the steel angles that are used to frame curves and stuff like that, I used that to make the spring deck, right? So that was the part like that of the machine. So I would slice it and everything, grind it off, and boom. They have square rods of solid steel. With that, I would actually construct the vise and drill it over and cut the excess and cut it with a hacksaw, So, but that's how I used to make my machines back in Argentina when I was younger. So to me, that was the only way, A lot of refining, grinding, and brushing and grinding. I also have to learn how to weld, and that actually gave my machine the final touch. They were very sturdy. I was really happy with it. They're still a little bit heavy, but not as heavy as other things out there. And I built a bunch of machines like that. I remember at that time, Nick Baxter had a forum and that I was following. I actually posted a couple of my handmade machines, and people like, wow, man, that's cool. Can you build me one? So I started building machines for colleagues at my shops. Then I started building machines for other people, and all of a sudden I started having a lot of requests, and I just couldn't keep up with the hacksaw and a bench. And
now, when you started building these other machines, would you improve anything on them, or you would just build
every time I did a machine was different. So
everything it was different.
Most of the machines that I did, they were like unique model frames. I would love to actually refine what I'm doing. You know, cut the weight down even more, streamline the coils. Just wanted to do something different, but I wanted to do it in a way that would allow me to actually repeat the same level of quality. I went to a shop that used to cut parts for motorcycles. I brought my ideas. I have four frames that I designed. You know, so I did all the views to these. The guy tells me, yeah, we can do that. So I made them out of steel. One was the Galaxy, the Zen, Exactor, and Pyro. I made 50 of each. I think I paid like $70 per frame. But, you know, cutting steel is not cheap. So I did the machines, and then I was heat treating the machines by hand, you know, dipping in oil, building the coils myself, and I started building those machines in my garage. I moved to an apartment, so a rental apartment, very small apartment, and I actually have to move the shop inside my bedroom, bro. Yes. I had a grinder in the bedroom, you know. I had a weld. It was so dangerous. That's how the company started, from my bedroom. And I remember the Icon device was the first distributor that wanted to carry my products. And then Nick Baxter, like I mentioned before, you know, I was a member of his forum. He asked me for a machine. I sent him a machine, and then he shared his feedback with other artists, and other artists shared the feedback with other artists. And that really helped the brand to really reach, you know, many, many people. So then I started traveling and tattooing. So I would actually do conventions and go with a stash of machines in my backpack, you know, all my gear, and I would tattoo while running the machine business there. I did that for many years. So I traveled to Australia, Singapore, Italy, Germany. I went all over the place. You know, I was on a tour. And every time I was going to places, I was blown away that people knew the machine. And I'd just be making this machine for a couple of years, you know, and people knew the machines and people were excited. I was selling out at every single show. At some point, the guy that was making my steel frames decided to charge me more, and I just couldn't afford more. You know, it would put my machines with no profit almost, you know, after I put all the labels. My first machine were about $299, I think. So he wanted to charge me $100 and something per frame, and I'm like, you're crazy. I'm like, I'm gonna go and look for another shop that can actually help me cut this parts. So I synced up with this guy that used to cut a lot of aluminum parts. And he's like, why don't we make your machines out of aluminum? It's going to be more cost effective. And I'm like, you know what? I would love, man, to do machines out of aluminum. But everyone says that they're so noisy, that, you know, they vibrate so much. And the guy gave me some tips. I'm like, well, maybe we can add radial joints in the corners to make it more sturdy. And gave me a couple of ideas. So I went back home and I redesigned all the machines. And I cut a couple of the machines. And I did a couple of tests. And people were blown away. I managed to make a machine 4 ounces, and that's when I actually started messing around with coils, and I came up with a 1.5 coil where the rear one is smaller, and the machine was so freaking light, you know? I was blown away. And the vibration wasn't any different than steel vibration, so it was pretty cool. Now, what happened at the time is that a lot of people started switching to disposable tips. So tattooing with a machine that was 8 ounces with disposable grips wasn't that comfortable, you know? And a lot of people that were actually switching to disposable grips found that machine ideal, you know? Not only they were knocking a lot of weight on the machine, they're also knocking a lot of weight in the grip. So, for example, Nick Baxter, that I remember he had carpal tunnel issues, he was in love, man. And you know, he was actually speaking his feedback to his friend. Man, this machine really allowed me to keep tattooing, you know? And I just realized that there were a lot of artists like myself, like Nick Baxter, like other people that really have problems gripping onto something, you know, so heavy.
But then now you eliminated coils and we moved to a motor.
So now let's fast forward to 2010. I wanted to make a rotary tattoo machine, period. And rotaries weren't popular. There were some rotaries from China here and there. And I'm like, man, I could bring the machine to even lighter weight. So that was the first thing that drove me to experiment with rotaries. And that's when I designed the Spectra Halo 1. So to design the Spectra Halo 1, I hired an engineer. It took me a year to design what I wanted to do with him. You know, I would have to meet with him on the weekends, and he would come to my house with his laptop, or me would go to his house, and we would design together. So we came up with an idea for what the first Spectra Halo was, and the idea that I always had was I want the motor to be removable. So the motor had a system where with a screw you can actually unscrew it. But then I came up with a quarter twist lock idea, and I decided to change the machine completely. So when I was actually almost ready to launch the machine, I decided to spend another year to refine the machine and basically scrap that design and say, no, we're starting from scratch. And we created that, the Spectra Halo 1 with that system, which is the system that we use until today, even for the Scion. The Spectra Halo 1 was also the first machine that you were able to autoclave. You could remove the top and autoclave it. And there was nothing like that. So that was pretty cool at that time because, people started taking tattooing, more seriously in terms of safety.
Safety, yeah.
The Spectra Halo 2, was, again, another nightmare because we have to hire another shop and it just took forever. And we made, we made a bunch of those machines.
Yeah, because now you start tweaking it. Now you take away rubber bands, you're taking away grommets, all that's out the door.
What did I do with that machine? The first thing that I do, and that really set a trend in machine design, modern rotary machine design, is I'm like, if I'm going to make a machine, I'm going to make a reliable product, I want to make it with a reliable connection. And clip cores definitely are not a reliable connection. Electronic, it's my background as well. So fluctuation is not good in any type of connection. That's why nothing that plugs actually dangles, right, or it has a hole where, that creates fluctuation, voltage drop. And I knew that in order to maximize the power of a machine, you would have to have a really solid, reliable connection. So I thought of RCA, even though RCA is an audio connection method, but it just looks so cool. It was the machine and just that little thing, the two posts for the binding posts. And I'm like, that looks really cool, man. People tattoo with clip cores. Well, I guess if they want to tattoo with this machine, they're going to have to buy an RCA cable, and probably they have one laying around somewhere.
That's the good thing. You could, back then I remember, you could buy an RCA cable at Radio Shack.
That was the very first tattoo machine with RCA only. From that moment on, I really wanted to push the industry into more efficient ways of tattooing, and that was my goal from the beginning. So I'm like, look, man, to bag a clip core, you just drop it and it drops in the bag and you plug it in and then you tape it around the motor. I mean, that doesn't get any easier than that. And I love my clip cores. Well, there are other brands that you can use with clip cores. So I stuck to that, and until this days, and then everyone else transitioned to RCA only, and now we're experimenting with other connections, even smaller. Like, for example, in the permanent makeup side, the mini DC. I mean, that's a great connection for DC current. So, always trying to evolve. And at one point, when I was making this machine and my machines and stuff like that, there was a huge conflict with manufacturer and keeping those guys focused and, meeting our deadlines and stuff like that. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to invest everything that I've earned building tattoo machine, which it wasn't much, and explore the capability of setting up a machine shop, a CNC shop.
So scaling at that point.
CNC shop. So I'm like, I gotta be like that guy that was cutting my frames. I gotta be like that guy, and on top of that, I gotta be like the guy that makes tattoo machines. So I have no clue, but I knew that was the only way out. In order to push the technology forward, I would have to invest, and in order to advance the tools that I was creating, I would have to advance even in the manufacture process. So I bought the first CNC machine when I was in my 600 square feet office. And
did you learn how to use that CNC machine, or did
that
you
was
bring
the goal.
Somebody in?
I was gonna run that bitch myself, man. And that was the thing. So at that time, I was building tattoo machines above my tattoo shop. So we have a little office, 600 square feet, and in between appointments, I will build machines. So, but again, it was so stressful. Like, the stress of dealing with machine shop was so much, so big that I even considered like quitting at one point. I'm like, man, I'm looking like an ass in front of the people that are believing in my product because of that guy, and I can't control that, And no matter how soon you pay, there, always a project in the bottom of the list, always, and it always was a small project compared to the things that they were able to do. So, I decided to
take matters into your own hands, literally.
I didn't even think about it. I'm like, I need one of those machines. I don't care what it takes. I don't even want to know because I don't want to be scared. I don't want to get. but I'm just gonna go for it. So I pick up the phone and I call this company Haas, and a representative came to my office, and I remember the guy called me, "Where is your warehouse?" And it's not a warehouse in South Beach, man. It's right here. So I give him the address. Oh, I can't find it. Well, you're going to see a tattoo shop. Yeah, I see the tattoo shop. Well, right above. You see that little window? And the guy's like, what the F? So the guy comes upstairs. We barely had room for a chair for him to sit down. Gus from us. So he sits down there and says, okay, so what do you need? And he was kind of like, what do you guys do here? We make tattoo machines. Okay. You guys manufacture them here? And I explained, oh, well, we build them here, but I hire this shop here in Miami to cut him, and we're having a lot of problems, and we consider him building a machine. And that guy really took me seriously, man. And honestly, all the situation was bound to not take me seriously, bro. A guy in tank top shorts, tattoo machines, called to buy a CNC machine. The guy took me seriously, right? And he said, okay, yeah, we could help you with that machine and this and that, but you're gonna need some space. Obviously, the machine was bigger than the whole office. So I'm like, okay, we'll look for a warehouse. And that's when we got the first warehouse, actually right behind this one. And we got the first warehouse. I remember that was December 2012. And we brought the first CNC machine. And once the machine was there, at that time, I was working with my manager of my shop, Kaylee, and we were like 2 or 3 guys. And I'm like, okay, so who is going to run that machine now? I'm like, hey, let's just do it, right? And then I started like researching about that, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just hire someone that knows what he's doing with that machine. And we put an ad on Craigslist, and someone replied. And that person luckily helped us, take off with the business, and he knew what we were doing, and I was able to focus on building machines. I was building almost every single machine for the longest. And, with a couple of friends. And then I realized that one machine is not, what do I do? It's just one machine, one part? How many parts of the machine? And then I'm like, oh, my God, what did I do? Did I do just the right thing? I'm like, one machine is not going to cut it, How many parts are in there in the machine? And like I said, I didn't think it through. I just went with it. And I thought that one machine, okay, I cut this, then I'll mount everything. I didn't even know how to set up a CNC machine or anything like that. So then I realized how complex it was. And then I'm like, the machinist that we hired said, guys, we need a lathe at least. And we got a lathe as well. My credit was up to the roof, I was maxed out, and I was determined to make it work. And I think that the fact that I got involved with leases and stuff like that, I have no room for failure. So that really pushed me to continue to, really take advantage of what I had, because it was a blessing for me to be able to qualify to buy this expensive equipment that I didn't even have the money for. And, that helped me to like stay razor focused. And that's when I decided that I wasn't going to be able to tattoo, run the shops, and create products and do a great job at everything. So I felt that I was doing an average job at everything, and I didn't like that. So I have to make a choice. I mean, do I continue being a tattoo artist, or do I move on to this new venture of, manufacturing 100% a machine in-house? So, I actually loved the manufacturing, and I loved the technical aspect, like I mentioned before. Since I was a kid, I always was involved with, gadgets and stuff like that. And I decided to put a pause on tattooing. Tattooing at the same time, to me, wasn't a healthy situation. My shop was on the beach. I was going out almost every night. I was living the South Beach life, and that wasn't healthy. And I'm like, you know what? This is probably a wake-up call for me as well. And, something is telling me, pursue this, So I decided to put the shop for sale, and finally sold the shops. I sold the shops, and to be honest with you, I felt such a relief, but at the same time, I felt so freaking sad. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot go to the shop and draw anymore. Oh my God. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it when I'm ready, And I had clients, artists that were relying on this tool, and I started focusing on what made them happy. rather than what made me happy. And I was starting to focus, the expression when someone held a machine. Wow, I started focusing on that positivity. And I decided to roll, And a few months after, I opened a shop at the warehouse, because I needed it. I just couldn't be without the shop. But I'm like, this works really good. I had a little area, it was licensed and everything.
Whenever you got the itch.
But it was private.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, I have the best of both worlds, So whenever I have time, I bring a client in and I tattoo. And at the same time, I need to test the products that I make. So it actually worked out so good because, we're here in Doral. My shops were on the beach. The commute was very long. And now I have everything. If I want a tattoo, I call someone, boom, come see, or someone calls me, comes and tattoos here. I kind of like stop what I'm doing, but I can go back really quick. So then I started running the shop from there and tattooing at the same time. So that was great. So we got, like I mentioned before, we got a couple of machines. And just to make a long story super short, not even 2 machine cut it. Not even 3, not even 4, not even 5. Why? Because you guys, you wanted more machines. So then I have to learn how to run a business. And again, I have shops. They were businesses, but trust me, I didn't know how to run those businesses very well. And, this gave me an opportunity to learn all the aspects about business. And then I realized that it doesn't matter if you're a tattoo artist or if you make microphones. You need to learn business.
Learn business, yeah.
Especially if you want to feed your family.
Exactly.
Through whatever craft you make. So
if that's going to be your livelihood, you got to know what you're doing.
So I took always tattooing as a way to express myself, and I never took tattooing to a commercial level. Yes, I did have a shop, but, I wasn't a factory of tattoos, If someone didn't, if one day we didn't have clients, I kind of like didn't sweat it too much, and because I felt that tattooing was something that was good to me, to my soul, to my brain, and it was nice to you pay some bills, right? But with FK Irons, I've learned how to run a business. I've learned how to create opportunities to others. One of the things that I remember in my tattoo shop is the conflict that I had with some artists, that they wouldn't show up, so I kind of like got mad at them rather than implementing rules or strategies or vet artists in it, better. So with here, because it wasn't just me, or it wasn't just me and that client. It was a bunch of people that were relying on the product. So, I wanted to give good customer service. I wanted to create great products. I wanted to have good finishes in our machine. So you have to think about all these things that you probably don't think. You probably look at this cup of water right now, and to the naked eye, that's just a cup of water.
Wow, that was easy. That was easy, but no.
To me, I look at that and I'm like, okay, this is paper, so this has some sort of coating system so the water doesn't slip through it, and it's being full. See what I'm saying? So you start thinking in a different way. There's got to be prints. Someone created the process. There was a graphic designer involved behind here. There was a press man. There is a machine that stitches this thing together. Probably someone and I started like thinking completely different. And in one way, I kind of like felt the way I thought when I was creating a new tattoo piece. Think outside the box, just go crazy, and you start getting all those random weird ideas that you think they're weird, but actually they're progressive ideas, a lot of the times. So that was it, and I think until now, every single day, I learned something new about business and about the industry itself.
Okay, so we're at this pivotal point. After all those machines, we're at this pivotal point where we get to the Zion. Tell us about that.
Okay, so the Zion was a crazy project. That was suicide. That was a suicide project. And for real, why I say that is because it took me about 3.5 years. From the first day I had an idea that I put it down until, the machine was actually in people's hands. So like I mentioned before, I used to rely on shops, and then, I had my own shop. But then I actually, one of the things that I undertook was the engineering part. So from working with an engineer that was working kind of like part-time on my projects to actually having to learn myself how to engineer products. And that was the tipping point for me in my career, because now my creativity wasn't bound to anyone else than myself, So I've learned engineering. So what I would do is I would actually tattoo, build some machines, and at night I would actually watch for many, many hours, going maybe 5-6 hours at night, how to design with SolidWorks. And in 3 months, more or less, I actually grasped, the basics of the software, and I started designing our own machines myself, and that to me was such an eye opener, it was such a motivation too, because I was always creating products and being bound by what people, being bound by people commitment to my projects, right? And like I mentioned before, people being late, engineers not having enough time, or, oh no, we're super busy at work, I can't meet you tonight to being able to really sit down with unlimited amount of time, because it was only me, the computer, my drawings, and, the guy that was running the CNC machine, to be able to create and in matters of days, sometimes hours, have something apart, something where before was, months, anything. Even if you want to design a little circle like that, probably to see in my hand would take months. And now take hours or maybe days. It was mind-blowing to me, and that really fueled me. So my ideas became more ambitious. My challenges were becoming more aggressive. I felt at one point that I'm like, I feel like invincible right now. I just wanna step it up, a step further. And when I got to the science, I hit a wall. I'm like, wow. First challenge is that most rotary machines that we designed, the motor was upright and the mechanism was perpendicular to the motor. So that was kind of easy, because I used like crankshaft mechanisms, with cams to create translation. That was very easy, You just put something here, off-center it, and then, you create some motion. Now, when we work with a pen, when I designed the pen, the motor would have to go like this. And so the mechanism that propels the needle. So that created an incredible amount of challenges. And so I started designing that machine in 2013. And with a system that I thought that I cut this mechanism and run it and the machine is going to work, that wasn't the case. So it was basically a cam with a circle with a little cut, and that created kind of like a bevel, and that was pushing a bearing. And on the computer, that's one of the engineer naive moments, when you think that because it works on the computer, that works in real life. It was total garbage. The machine was so freaking loud. It would heat up so fast. The power of the motor that we were using for other rotors wasn't powerful enough. So to cut a long story short, again, FK Irons already had a name out there. We had Instagram at that point, that we were running all the social medias. And also I was tattooing, like I mentioned before, and having to design the sign was completely, nerve-wracking. So I slept for 3 years, about only 3 hours a day, and sometimes even less. I swear. I would spend day and night trying to come up with mechanisms to create, translation in a silent way, in a way that the machine wouldn't heat. And I remember that at that time, in the 3 years that I designed the machine, I came up with 7 mechanisms. Each mechanism took me probably, do the math, divide 3.5. But every mechanism was like, man, I hope this one is it. I hope it is. I hope this one is it. And, we would cut the part just to find a bunch of problems. And because they were 7 completely different mechanisms, they have different parts. It's not that I was able to reuse a lot of stuff. I tried to keep the body, the grip similar, but the interior was completely different. So that's why it took so long. And I took 3.5 years, because I thought I had it, in the first take. That was completely garbage. I thought I had it in the second take. That was completely garbage. Like that until the 7th. So the 7th prototype was a combination of suicidal thoughts, frustration, and actually learning from all the mistakes I made with the other machines. So, I'm joking, suicidal, but I ended up at the hospital 3 times. I was diagnosed at that time with ultra high blood pressure, anxiety, panic attacks. So I was medicated. I was a mess, man. I was a mess. And all of that because of the amount of stress that I endure and because I wasn't sleeping anything, barely anything. It took a toll in my relationship with my wife, too. You know, she actually saw me going through. I remember she's like, baby, come on. Like if I was some schizophrenic and, no, baby, it's okay. Tomorrow we go. No, I have to do it right now. I can't. Get out.
You kept seeing it in your head.
You're the devil. I was losing it, man.
Well, I mean, I remember I was here. Well, I'm going to be here 3 years in February. So I remember some of those. I remember some of those times.
That mood was not great.
No. You can cut it with a knife. But I was also, I'm proud to say that I was here to finally see that final product. I was here for the launch, and it was just so freaking amazing that when I would go to a convention, there would be a line of people waiting to buy the machines. The next day, they would tell you, what time do you open? We'll tell them at 11, and we will get there at 10. And there was a line of people waiting to buy machines.
That was iPhone-looking type of thing, man.
It was amazing. So, man, I'm just happy to say I was part of that. It was amazing. So we've gone through the evolution of FK Irons. But there's just so much more, guys. I mean, the future is so bright right now. We got so much stuff coming out. Some of you guys know we got the battery pack coming out. That is coming for pre-order soon, guys. Stay tuned for that. So, guys, we went from these coil machines made out of steel to aluminum to pen to wire to not even having a wire now, guys.
Let's talk about wireless.
Okay, so right now we're going into the future, and right now is wireless. So
Marty McFly.
Let's talk about a little bit about the lightning bolt.
All right. So, just when you thought you had enough with the science, just when you thought you had enough and you almost die and you almost get divorced and you almost all kinds of stuff, then the idea of making the machine wireless is starting to run around my head. And who didn't think about a wireless machine? We all thought about a wireless machine, and not necessarily in this time. We thought about wireless long time ago. The problem is that to accomplish that, you really have to have a set of skills put together in a team that really understand your vision, you know? So this was only possible, this past years because our electronic department. And I remember in 2014, when I first hired the first electronic engineer full-time, and again, nobody has seen a product from us. I mean, you have seen the hover and stuff like that, but nobody actually, we don't have any electronic product that we're commercializing today because all of those products, 2014 until now, that's how long it took the evolution to really figure it out. What's the best way to make a machine wireless? What's the best way to design a power supply? And you've seen it. We designed so many power supplies that people haven't even seen, and they were finished product just for the exactly with the sign, just for the product after a year or so to be done. And what did I say? Nope. Scrap it, man.
And I tell people that all the time. I tell them if it's not right, it's not, because people always want to complain about, but you always keep us waiting. Well, do you want to wait and you don't want to wait and get a superior product? Or do you want to now and get a half-ass product? Regardless, he's not going to put out a half-ass product, so you're going to have to wait. But
yeah, man,
it is how it is.
2014 into 2019, that's 5 years, and right now we are about to launch that. Now, for the longest, we were one engineer, electronic engineer, and we're now 3 and 4 with an engineer that works remotely on a case-by-case. And now we have the tools, now we have the machine shop that took years for us to master and 2 years to even form the machinists to craft tattoo products, because it's not that you throw a machinist there and all of a sudden you have a machine. A lot of the machinists haven't even seen in their life a 2/10 of an inch as tolerance, For a lot of machine shop, that's crazy, that's unmatchable, and sorry, we can't do your job. So those are some of the tolerances that we handle here. So for our engineers to be able to master, the art of holding those tolerances took a long time. We did have problems, with initial productions in the past, and we had problems with part fitting, and when parts would come from anodizing, not fitting because the anodizer was too thick or too thin, and we have to overcome and actually prepare solutions for that. And we actually have to design and engineer a product thinking about all the setbacks that we were that we were having before. So it took years to get us in a way where we can actually now think of a product and go through the creation process, deploy and engineer and release it. So going straight to the point now, wireless. So the Flux is actually the result of the Hover, because the Flux is exactly like the Hover. It uses the same processor. It uses the same component almost as the Hover, but it is a much more condensed form factor. Yes, it doesn't have an aluminum housing, and it doesn't have a screen, and it doesn't have a bunch of stuff, which makes it a much more affordable product. But first, we have to do the Hover for us to be able to do the battery pack. And you know how funny it is. The battery pack is ready. The Hover, we're almost there, because of the amount of features that I wanted to add to the product. And again, we could have launched a power supply, just to have a power supply out there, and it would have been great, because we sell tons of the critical power supplies, and those are incredible power supply. But I just, I think the critical product had a place in the industry, so I don't want to create a critical product, because there's a critical product already. I just wanted to create a dark lab product, and a dark lab product would have to be different in many ways, and it would have to have tools that really simplify the lives of tattoo artists. Not gimmicky features, but features that would really add into the equation. Like, for example, not having to worry about touching the power supply, or being able to control a power supply with a voice, or being able to switch banks in a way that doesn't involve cross-contamination is much easier than ever has been done before. So yeah, we started embracing all these crazy ideas. A year ago, we're crazy. Thinking about talking to a power supply was freaking crazy. Today, it's a reality, and it's a reality that, again, it takes so much energy and so many people to release. So, I think the point that we are in right now, that we are on wireless, is just an inevitable evolution from where we came from. It had to happen. It's kind of like it had to happen. It's kind of like we are running out of running out of standard ideas, and we have to think way beyond. So that was, that's what actually is bringing the Flux. It's bringing the battery pack, and also for the permanent makeup line, we also have 2 machines that are going to be wireless next year. And we are thinking about keeping the line of Spectra machines like the Halo, Edge, and Direct, but making wireless. For 2021, my goal is to say goodbye to the wires.
Amen to that. I'm pretty sure every tattoo artist loves to hear that.
We listen. You guys know that one of the things that we do is we're very personal with our clientele and customers. We make them part of all the things we do here. We post out, hey, what do you think about that? Like, we use the industry as our feedback.
We give them product for them to use and tell us how it is.
Yeah, and no product is going to go out until a lot of our artists are using it and they're happy.
Definitely.
Right now, when we thought that we had it, how many times we went back and forth with Heavy? And we're going to go as many times as possible. But I think that's kind of like what separates us apart from maybe average engineers and manufacturers, that they release stuff just to be on the market.
To be first.
And we release stuff to really cater.
We don't need to be first. We want to be better.
There's no rush to be first.
No.
And although we've been first at some things, we kind of don't care. We don't care. I mean, if I'm a first at something, but the experience with the product is horrible.
So you want to be remembered for making that first shitty-ass product? No, right?
Yeah.
So there it is, guys. I mean, we make things that work, things that last, and that's why our warranties are lifetime warranties. I mean, we're not going to give you a lifetime warranty on a piece of shit product, So, so we've gone, like I said, from the beginning to the end. Guys, who knows what's in that head right now of what's coming up next? I couldn't tell you.
If there is anything coming up next.
I'm sure some little spark is going to happen in there. Who knows what's coming next, guys? But this has been amazing because I actually got to sit here and learn so much because I didn't know a lot about this story. So this was amazing. Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you for your time, Zeke.
This was, it was really awesome. I enjoyed it. Guys, check us out. Again, leave comments below. There's the story of FK Irons, the whole evolution with the man, Gaston Siciliano.
And what do you think that we should design next? drop your comments down below. For real.
Let us know.
Let us know, man, because that's how we create products. Yeah, so basically, I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest with everyone. There's nothing much to invent when it comes to a cartridge needle. We didn't invent much there. We did some enhancements, so I'm not going to tell you, oh, we just came up with, no. You know, we know who originated the cartridge needle, and we just pay a small royalty percentage. We use their technology, and we enhance some of the geometry of the cartridge. But, you know, there are some things that I did want to see in a cartridge and be able to control, which was the membrane tension, you know. Why? Because with our electronic engineers, we realized that there are some cartridges that have more tension than others. Yeah. And that, now when thinking about wireless, that takes a direct toll in the battery life. So the more resistance you have in the cartridge, the more battery are you going to drain, the less your machine is going to last. So, you know, we came up with the Vertex line last year, and we started working on that a year prior. And like I mentioned before, the wireless game was already in development, and we knew that we have to have at least cartridges that actually go by this type of rule, not having the membrane too thick. So, you know, if people are going to adopt our wireless machines when our machines come out, they have a line of cartridges that kind of like addresses that, because it's not just a matter of the battery, it's a matter of a lot of the parameters. And, you know, we thought that controlling that aspect as well, even with minor changes, again, you know, we didn't invent the wheel in here, but even with those slight changes that we did, like with the two pore holes, I mean, you know, amazing, which really reduces the amount of spit and it decompresses the cartridge, so the cartridge relaxes even more. You know, all those things are things that I think add up to a great experience when it comes to tattooing. And again, a lot of people may not like the sign, and a lot of people may not like the Vertex, and it's just fine, because, you know, different people, different tastes, different requirements and needs. But we just wanted to make sure that we had something that we believe in and that we can stand behind for, you know, our customers that support, you know, our ideas and projects.
100%, 100%.
That's
there
it.
You go. That's
Fuck
Vertex.
the needles, bro.